What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Gridiron Uncensored. I'm Trevor. He's Blake, and we are doing just us two tonight. This evening, we're doing an earlier show than we normally do. And Brendan's doing his family and friends thing for the holidays. And Merry Christmas for those of you that I did not get to say Merry Christmas to last time. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. So let's just kind of dive right into it. We're going to go over a few little things. The disaster that the Oklahoma Sooners are is one thing that we're going to definitely touch on. And just for me personally, is that I just feel like the ACC has played themselves out of even being allowed to have an automatic bid at this point. So I just feel like that's just that. ACC should be disqualified from having any sort of automatic bid. In fact, I think they should just take away automatic bids altogether for the foreseeable future. I think that should be an immediate change this offseason where no more automatic bids. It is the top 12 teams get in. There is no qualifiers. There's no nothing. The final rankings come after conference championship week, and that's where the chips will fall where they may. I just think that's probably the best policy is just the top 12 teams get in. That means there's no automatic bids. Top 4 teams get buys if you want to do the buys, but I'm okay if they just want to just do tournament system and just no buys. Everybody's got to just play their way through.
And that would work way better than the current system.
It'd be working better than what's going on right now. So, but yeah, Blake, you want to touch base on? Let's talk about Oklahoma and the disaster that was their bowl game. If you want to take it from there.
Yeah, it was absolute embarrassment what happened. And I know they had a lot of people leave. I get it, but still, the way they played to give up the points that they did to Navy was just absolutely embarrassing. And I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. I mean, I was just like, they got this in the bag. I didn't even look at it. And I pull up my app, and I'm like, wait, what's happening?
Oh, I know. It was a comeback. I mean, I like to see the armed forces teams do well, especially when they take down a team. You know, it's supposed to be – I know they're down or whatever, but it's still Oklahoma. You know, that name brand. It's always nice to see those upsets like that, especially when they beat Alabama. So I'd like to see Oklahoma lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a bad look for the SEC, no doubt about it. They made this big deal. They made this big deal about getting Texas and Oklahoma in. While Texas is on one end of the spectrum, we have Oklahoma over here on the opposite end of the spectrum, basically embarrassing their entire school name and legacy, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, for as long as I can remember, Oklahoma has been like the, I guess you'd say, cream of the crop. Like it's them in Texas and then everybody else in the Big 12 for as long as I can remember. And they go to the SEC. They do okay. They make it a bowl game. It's been a down couple of years for Oklahoma, no doubt. But you definitely do not expect them to give up a lead to a Navy team while Navy is good. I mean, let's be honest. It's the Navy kids that are playing in these games. This is their second job. This is not their primary thing. They're going to school, and then they're also learning to be military officers. And then there's football. So I'm just like,
well, Venables being in Oklahoma, he hasn't really had the best, I guess, luck would be the word to use. I mean, he's got pieces in place, but offensively, to lose 5 wide receivers and have to go through the regular season like that, I mean, that's a tough ask. I mean, so the offensive woes,
I'm sure he's going to get I think he's going to get a little bit of leeway from not the Oklahoma fan base, but but the Oklahoma administration, I think they will give him one more year, I think.
Oh yeah.
To see how he turns it, see if he can turn it around.
I mean, defensively, he didn't do horrid. I mean, they had one of the better defenses, and it's just they couldn't never get anything going offensively. But when you have 5 receivers out, you know what are you supposed to do?
there's really not much he can do, to be perfectly honest. Um, and I just think overall, it's like we have to really take a look at Oklahoma and I guess the way we look at them from now on. Because I mean, it's going to be kind of. I think Oklahoma is, I'd say, kind of in that same category as like Texas A&M for me. You better
Yep.
start proving it before I start putting like confidence behind me picking you for weeks and me having confidence in you become making any sort of impact in the SEC in
Yep.
general.
Well, I mean, just moving over to Texas A&M, their bowl game was not any better than
It
Oklahoma's.
really hasn't.
Absolute
It really wasn't. It was
embarrassment.
not.
Absolute, yep, absolute embarrassment. They got players hitting the portal. Well, I mean, everybody does. Everybody's
Yeah,
got players
everybody's
hitting the
losing
portal right
somebody
now,
somewhere.
but yeah, the SEC. It has not been the greatest showing this season for the argument that they're the greatest conference. I mean, I'll concede that. This has not been the best year for the SEC.
Look, the transfer portal has leveled the playing field quite a bit, mainly
Yep.
because there's a whole even. I mean, granted, when they brought down the amount of scholarships that schools could have, that increased the parity within the game, and then obviously now the transfer portal has increased the parity across the spectrum because now
Yeah.
players can go. I mean, every year you can play for a different team if you want to.
Yeah.
So
It's not even that like a good player is leaving and going to another school. It's also the school that they're leaving is having to fill that position with somebody who may not be familiar to it, which hurts the
yep,
school. So it's not that like all these schools are magically getting good. I mean, some of them are sure, but it's also weakening some of the schools that were very good and just putting them in bad,
absolutely,
predicaments. So I think we're going to see
absolutely.
a lot of changes with the portal in the next 3 or 4 years. I really believe that.
I really think that there has to be a couple things put in place to control it.
Yeah,
Either
for
you
sure.
change the transfer window to after the season is over,
Yep.
or I know it has to coincide with school years. I get that. I
Yeah,
really do understand that. But there's got to be something better where coaches and teams aren't concerned with the transfer portal while they're trying to prep
for sure.
for all the other things that are going on at that same time.
The
So,
only answer is to change the way the season is played, whether
yeah.
that be cutting games or moving the
Or
season up, starting earlier,
make it one
or
massive transfer portal in the summer.
yeah. I mean, something's
Like
got to happen
you
where,
got to move it somewhere. Either you mess with the
yep,
season and the way it's played, or you move the transfer portal completely to the summer, and
for
just
sure.
and that's where you just won't have these guys being able to be a part of the team until the summertime, summer practices,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then that'll just be the way it has to be.
Yep. And before we hit the playoff games, I just want to touch on one thing, and
Go for it,
that's
man.
what Cam Ward, what he did to his team in the bowl game was absolutely pathetic. How they had an opportunity to win that game, and he refused to come in and play, but he stayed in just long enough in the first half to get his stats and to break that record, and then just chooses to not play and help his team. That was absolutely pathetic. That's a sad thing to do as a human being to
It
your
is
team.
1,000% worse than just sitting out the bowl game.
Yep.
Like if you're the first round draft pick, I 100% understand sitting out the bowl game.
Yep.
But to play the bowl game and then quit, that's
Yep.
a whole different thing.
And in that same sentence, I hate to do it, but I got to give kudos to
Yep,
Travis Hunter.
do it. Go ahead. Well, that
Travis
being
Hunter.
said, that Alamo Bowl worked with both of the universities to make sure that every player that played in the game that was a
Yep.
senior had insurance.
Yeah. But still, he knows he's about to be probably a top 5 pick.
Yep.
And he chose to play in the entire game in a game they were losing from the get-go. And I don't like it. I don't like the guy as a person. I mean, he's,
Nope. But I
but
respect him for making the
I
decision,
respect what he did
even
for
though that
sure.
he had accident insurance. The fact of the matter is that whether you have accident insurance or not, that could be a career-ending injury that you could have had happen, and insurance is only going to cover you so much.
For
Like
sure.
before, like there's no way you can replace 10 years of earnings in the NFL just with insurance. There's no
Yep.
way. Because I
For
mean, if
sure.
you figure he plays the way he plays for 10 years, even 8 years in the NFL, and he gets one max contract, like
Yeah.
I mean, like there's no insurance policy on earth right now that could cover that the potential earnings that he could have had. So I respect both. I respect
Yep.
all the seniors that played on in their bowl games, regardless of the outcome. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, that is cool, and I do respect them for that for sure.
100%.
So
So
okay, so let's go. We're just going to dive into the playoff, the quarterfinals. We'll start off on December 31st at 6:30. Well, I'm sure my phone is showing Central Time. Nope, no, that's Eastern. I think 6:30 Eastern with Penn State and Boise playing in the Fiesta Bowl. Well, Blake, what are your initial thoughts on this setup? And let's see, what is ESPN has Penn State as an 11.5 point favorite right now.
I would like to see Boise win this game, but defensively, I think it's going to be the same thing SMU went up against.
Right.
Boise is just, I think they're going to struggle going against the Penn State defense with a running game. I think it's going to be a very difficult thing for them to do. Could they do it? Absolutely. Will they do it? I don't think I'm there.
You
Defensively,
think
though,
do you
Boise,
think they could cover the spread?
yeah, I do. I think that Boise State has a good enough defense to stay in the game with Penn State. Aller does not speak to me as any type of top tier quarterback.
No.
He's just average. And Penn State, I mean, they've
He's
got
a
a
yeah.
average running game, maybe slightly above average.
Hmm.
And I just offensively they don't scare me. And I think the
Right.
Boise State defense is enough to hold them back. I just don't know that Boise can score.
Right. And that is the kick. That will be the kicker. And you're right.
Yeah.
Aller doesn't jump off the page, and he does. He's like um, I would say he's a better version of Cade McNamara if I was to compare
Yeah.
him to a quarterback. Like he's just a little better version of that. Nothing special, nothing great, but can get the job done. Um, and you're right. Penn State's running game is going to be interesting to see that against the Boise State team because while their running backs are not necessarily spectacular, they are powerful.
Yeah.
They are a couple of powerful backs. So it will be interesting to see Boise State on the tackling. And if they don't wrap these guys up, like we saw in Penn State in their first playoff game against SMU,
Yep.
they were just running through tackles like
Yep.
no problem. So, and that, yeah, that's, I just don't know. I want to say that I'm still really, really, really hoping that Penn State or Boise State, excuse me, has
Yep.
enough to really pull this off.
Yep.
But like you said, Penn State on the line is going to be super, super important on both sides of the ball. And I think Penn State has them beat on both sides,
Yep. I
unfortunately.
agree. I agree.
So then we're gonna move on to the first game on January 1st. It'll be Texas and Arizona State kicking it off at 12, and they have the initial line at Texas having a 12.5 point favorite.
Yep.
Do you agree with that?
I do. I think if Texas runs the ball how they did against Clemson, I could see it running up, the score running up, because Arizona State, though they can throw the ball,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got a run game with Scattaboo, and when you have two teams that are running the ball like that, and Texas is scoring on big plays, that's going to eat the clock up. And if Arizona State can't score, I think it's going to be a difficult thing to do. I think Texas has a very aggressive defense, and it's going to be tough to score on them with the type of offense that Arizona State runs. But I could see Texas winning this game like 31-10, 31-7, 28-7, something like that, and it getting out of hand.
Yeah, and I'll say this is that Jay Bake has chimed in, and he did say that Boise State and he thinks that Arizona State both have a lot to play for. And while I
Mhm.
do agree with you, at this point in stage when we're in the quarterfinals, both teams have a lot to play for, and
Right.
they're both going to be hyped up for it. So with that being said, I just think that Texas, man, Texas and Penn State really are really lucking out right now because I don't. While I really hope that Arizona State comes out with a really strong performance, I want to just. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I really do think Texas is going to be too much for Arizona State as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I think that there's a possibility that they can cover the spread. Um, but yeah, yeah, like Jay Bake is liking what you said there, Blake. Is that if the game stays in the 20s wise, it's going to get interesting, and I do agree with that.
Yeah.
If it's a
I
tight
agree.
game, it legit is everybody's game or
Yep.
anyone's game. Excuse me.
And just going to what he said about the little teams having something to play for, they 100% do, and they're going to be up for this game. But Texas also, not that Sark's on the hot seat or anything, but there's high expectations of him at Texas, especially after the offseason they had with some of the players
Right.
they brought in and the roster he's got. You know, they
Mhm.
went down in the Final Four last year and lost to Washington. It's one of those things where they're kind of resetting after this season. You know, they're going to lose a lot of talent. They got a lot coming back. You know, it's not that they don't have a good roster, but they're just losing, you know, a lot of experience. And
You talking
like
about
between
Texas?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they've got like, this is like one of those, if not this year, it may be another season or two before you see them back in this situation. But between the two games, I would say Boise State has a better chance of beating Penn State than
Yes.
Arizona State does Texas. Not that I don't want that to happen, because I would love to see Arizona State take them down. I just don't know that they have the
Oh,
firepower.
we'll all be rooting for the little guy,
Oh, for sure.
except for in this next game. Except for in this next game, where we got the second game of the quarterfinal on the first is Ohio State and Oregon playing in the Rose Bowl for the Roses. Um, and they have the initial line as OSU having the favorite at 2.5 point favorite. I don't agree with that in the least.
I'm
I don't
shocked.
understand that. I don't understand that at all. But we've seen this before this season where they or not was it this season or last season? I don't remember which, but they just completely put Oregon out in the doghouse as far as being a
Yeah.
favorite in their own game when they should have been the favorite.
Yeah.
And it is very surprising that they put OSU as the favorite initially. Now 2.5 is not. It's basically saying it's a draw. It's like
Yeah.
it's an even contest, which I still don't think that's correct either.
Yeah.
But I think Oregon has plenty that they're going to give us Ohio State as much as they can handle. However, once again, if it's a close game, it's going to scare me to the point where I think that Ohio State could pull it off because they have the
Yeah.
ground game. They have enough of the ground game going. We saw that last game that they played where the ground game really got going really
Yeah.
early on. And they actually started airing it out to these high flying, really talented wide receivers that they have.
Yeah.
So I mean, they
I
have three
think,
wide receivers that could easily go in the first round at different
yeah,
points, obviously, because they have a freshman, but they're really talented at the wideout.
I think the Tennessee game really showed that, like Ryan Day, I know they won the game, but it shows
Yep.
kind of to me his inability as a coach, because when they are prepared and have a good game plan, they can be a great team. But I look back at a lot of these games that they are not prepared for and do not have good game plans for. Like against Oregon the first time, you know, I think they do a little better running the football. You probably got a different outcome that
Right.
first go around. I felt like they aired it out too much and put too
Mhm.
much on Will Howard the first time. Um, and I'm with you. Like I hope Oregon goes out and smacks them, but I really think Ohio State's got a fire lit under them, and I think when you look in the trenches, I still feel like they're just better up front than Oregon is on both sides of
The,
the
the
ball.
only thing, yeah, I tend to agree with that. I still think Oregon has the best offensive line in this
Yeah,
game, bar none. So it'll be the contest for me between the Oregon offensive line and the Ohio State defensive line. If they can't
yeah,
get penetration, now if the defensive line can't get penetration with the front four, only the front four rushing, then I think Ohio State's going to in for a long day, because I
yeah.
feel like as soon as you take one of those linebackers or a safe or a corner and you start blitzing, I think Dylan Gabriel is just a little too experienced to not. He's not going to get rattled for that kind of thing.
Yep. See, that's my key to this game for Ohio State is you have to make Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable, and that's a big ask because nobody's really been able to do that this season.
Because he's so comfortable on the run and just kind
Yep.
of figuring things out as he goes. But and Will Howard is so far been proven to be okay. Now, I do have a question for you on this. Do you
Yeah.
think that Ohio State, because it's Oregon now and not a lesser program that they're playing against, do you think that they will continue to air it out and not be afraid to air it out? Because I think that they are going to revert back to, we're going to be a tough nosed running team first, and then
Yeah.
we will pass when we need to.
If it were me, you look at the things Oregon has struggled with throughout the season, and that has been another undefeated, but teams that are able to run the football have had more success against Oregon. Penn State had success against them with it. Ohio State, on the few runs they had that were good, had success against Oregon. Boise State
Right.
had success running the ball against Oregon. So there is a weakness there. I would look for a similar game plan to honestly the Tennessee game. I think they ran it just enough, and they had some pretty big plays in the running game out of those backs. And then you're right, they took more risks than they did, the rest of the season airing it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see that more.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a different Ohio State team.
I think so too, and it'll be at the Rose Bowl. So I
Yep.
think this might be the first time in Rose Bowl history that two Big Ten teams have played each other at the Rose Bowl. But I'd have to double check that, but I'm fairly certain that that's accurate.
Yeah.
But and then the final game on the first, the last quarterfinal game is Notre Dame and Georgia. And this is actually a surprising statistic as well, that Georgia comes in as only a 1.5 point favorite in this game. I'm very
Yep.
surprised that that is 7:45 kickoff, according to this, or maybe that's when the coverage starts actually. But whatever, coverage probably starts. The kickoff probably won't be till 9 p.m. But no big deal.
This
But
one
this
is
is surprising to me because I still don't. I'm not completely all in on Notre Dame like
yeah.
what it pretty much everyone else is, but um, it's got to be the dogs all day long for me. Just because I feel like, well, hang on, I just remembered that Beck, I think, is still not playing, as
But
far
is
as
that
I
a
know.
bad thing? Is
That's
that a
not a
bad
bad
thing?
thing. It's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just an uncertainty thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not
Um,
certain on how that's going to play out.
I felt like when he went out, I felt like they played better offensively without him.
I mean, they
But it
definitely
is,
rallied around the young guy that came in
yeah,
behind them for sure.
yeah. The thing is like I'm not saying Notre Dame is like this big powerhouse football program, but they've got a good team, and they've been one of the more consistent teams all season on both sides of the ball. And I think a lot of people have underestimated them. And I mean, I think they're going to beat Georgia. I really do. I'm not going for them, but I think they're going to get it done, and I
That
think
would
they're
be
going
a
to do
huge
it.
win. That would be something where Notre Dame's coach would get a lifetime contract if that happened.
Yeah. The thing, it's, and I don't think it's going to be like a big like blowout or anything like that. Like it's going to be a tough, hard nosed in the trenches football game. I'm like, this could be an ugly game. like 14-10 top thing, because both teams run the ball. They both have really good defenses, and they both have had some offensive struggles, especially when passing. So, I mean, it could be an ugly, long, hard-fought, boring game, but
It could be a
I
very
think Notre
boring
Dame.
game. There's,
I think Notre Dame's going to etch them out.
you got Notre Dame in that one? Okay. All right.
I
I'm
got
gonna
Notre
still
Dame in
hang
it.
on to Georgia and think that they're gonna go. But I do see your point that once again, like if these games stay close, it's anybody's ball game because at this point, I think that any one of the teams could pull away, like could come away with a last second field goal,
Yeah.
even a last second touchdown, even, and kind of just take it from the favorite. So, but yeah.
Yep.
Blake, you got anything else? That pretty much wraps up our preview. We just kind of
Yeah.
went through some of the games. I don't believe we will probably have another show until after the new year to kind of
Yep.
go over how the quarterfinals went, and then we'll talk about them more than likely on the second or third, if I'm not mistaken. But we will update all our social medias with when the next show will actually be. So, Blake, you got anything else for everybody?
Yeah, I will just say, me and Brendan just put out our Substack for the Michigan Alabama game. We did a little write up on it,
Okay.
so you can go to any of our pages and check that out.
And okay, well, Blake, do you remember who you picked to win it all? The
Preseason,
current teams that are in it now.
yeah,
Now the current teams that are in it, because
I,
my thing's gone. It's freaking gone.
I've only missed one game postseason so far,
Okay.
and it was who was it? Oh, Tennessee. I had Tennessee beating Ohio State, but I picked Notre Dame to win it all.
Oh, okay. So you're still in it. You're still in it.
I've got Notre
All right.
Dame playing. I think it was Oregon and beating Oregon was our when we started
Okay.
the playoff pick. But I
Yep.
think now it's probably going to be Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Yeah, it could be. It could be for sure. This will be a fun little week. It'll be a fun little week. So yeah, guys, Jay Big, thank you for listening and chatting us up here. We appreciate you. Everybody on the socials that are watching, we appreciate you, and we'll see you in 2025. Y'all have a great New Year's, and yeah, we'll see you in 2025. Take care.
See you.